Suddenly, to my surprise,
He did the mash,
he did the monster mash.
the monster mash.
It is Halloween, and so we decided we would start this spooky holiday out with sort of some spooky statistics. Could it be true that watching horror films may be good for you? I'm hopeful that it's not, because I am not a fan of horror films.
I think the only good that I can think of that came out of watching horror film was when I was a little kid. My mom and dad would go bowling on Friday nights or something, and that's when the monster horror thrill feature was on. And I remember one night I watched Frankenstein again. And previously when I had watched Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, I just couldn't stand it. I would leave and I'd go hide and this, blah, blah, blah. And then another time, like the next Halloween or something, I watched it. And then when my folks got home, they asked, well, how did it go? And my brother said, well, Jack did real good. He didn't leave the room and go to the bathroom and not come back this time. So I stayed and I watched it. That was my excuse the first time I watched Frankenstein. So, well, I got to go to the bathroom. Excuse me. I split and I didn't come back. But the next time I made
my exits much more dramatic. There was screaming. Yes, all of that. We start the show with Veronica Sites, who is a counselor. Veronica, welcome to KFGO Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Boo.
So is it true that watching horror films could really be good for your health? And if so, how the heck is that possible?
Well, I'm not going to say that it's good for your health. There's some brain benefits that have been traced in the studies that indicate that dopamine, which is a happy chemical released in the brain that causes us to feel good, is released because of the amount of adrenaline from the fear, the angst, and all of the anxiety leading up to the spine chilling, the music, the scene, and whatever it is that just scares the bejeebers out of us. That is a benefit, the chemical release. I submit, if you look at the whole study and understanding brain health and how it can impact people, you have to understand that entertainment can sometimes lead to helping people face their fears, but it also can have some long-term psychological impact on it, because you're dealing with a mind, body, and a soul. So, while it says horror films, one of the movies that came to my mind that isn't really horror in nature, but it's a movie called The Ouija, about the Ouija board.
Uh-huh.
Things happen in the body and the mind because of how we have beliefs, and those are things that I look at the person as a whole. So while that study does have some merit, and it's scientifically proven that dopamine increases it's actually after watching the movie, because once a person realizes they're safe and gets back into the reality of their security, leaving the theater or turning the lights on or coming out of the bathroom, there's a release, and that's where people regain that sense of security. So that's beneficial. I'm not so sure about the whole sit down and watch a horror movie and think that it's going to be long-term healthy. I wouldn't call it exercise by any means.
But you probably do burn some calories.
Oh, you do. Definitely do.
One of the ways I got over my fear of movies, and I'm often startled by them when I watch, the hand reaching around the corner or that kind of thing. But I remember, I think it was my dad who said, well, for crying out loud, quit being such a scaredy cat. There's cameras around there. There's microphones hanging around. There's makeup artists. And every time the scene switches on the screen, it means that they change to redo the makeup and change the lighting and all of that. He says, for crying out loud. Then when I got older, I see the behind-the-scenes things, and I go, oh, yeah, it's just a movie. So,
yeah, and there is that. But, when you think about like a movie like Jaws, that was pretty horrific.
Yeah.
And there's you can't take the shark out of the ocean and say that it was cameras and lights. Yes, it was a mechanical shark, but people handle it differently.
Movies that scare me most of all are movies like Jaws. Things, Dirty Harry with the psychopathic murderer chasing people around, and real life psychological horror stories scare me a lot more than monsters and stuff like that, because it can
Yeah,
really
I mean,
happen.
when you've got ghouls and you know it's definitely fiction, that's easy to detach from. But when you've got the crazy going on, that's a possibility, and that's a little more creepy to people.
I think the most creepy films are actually not the horror films, but any kind of suspenseful film. Like if there's so much suspense and I get so I feel like I have like an anxiety attack about it. I can hardly handle, like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies are not scary at all, but they're like suspenseful and just enough where I'm like, that's scary to me. I just want to know how it ends right now.
You don't get into that suspense. You're not into the calorie burning with the movie benefits.
I am not into the calorie burning. In fact, I often tell people I don't watch suspenseful horror films because I care about my health and my mental well-being, and I don't feel like it's mentally good for me. So then when I read this research about how it's mentally good for you, I'm like, no, my argument has always been against that. I'm always like, you guys, I care about my mental health, so that's why I don't want to watch this.
It's funny you bring that up, because if we were to take this same study and put it over all of the anxiety people are having over the elections, I wonder how many calories have been burnt in the world.
No kidding.
Wow, that is true.
But Amy,
oh my goodness.
Amy, you don't go to many movies at all.
No,
so,
I don't.
So
No. I mean, I watch movies every once in a while, but I'm not a movie buff at all. Like I don't make it a priority, that's for sure.
Well, Veronica, thank you very much. That's very interesting. The release of dopamine following a horror movie can give you a certain amount of stimulation, but it doesn't make you a better person.
No, that's right.
Maybe forget some of the daily stresses. That's always nice too, I guess, when you're that immersed into a film.
You know what gets me at movies worse than anything is when you go like to a 2:00 matinee and there's like 4 people in the theater and you sit in the seat you want and somebody walks in and sits right behind me. Now that irks the heck out of me. Why? You've got 500 seats. Go sit over there. But I've never done that. I just leave. All right. Thank you very much, Veronica. Thanks for the counseling.
Okay, y'all have a safe Halloween.
You too.
You too.